Hello. What can you learn with Star Wars to be a successful project manager? Let me stop the music now. My name is Guilherme and I help professionals to become successful project managers. Today we are going to discuss a lot of nice project management stuff, but this considering here the Star Wars scenario, which is at least for me it's a very good movie and for sure it's one of my lists of the movies I enjoyed a lot. So let's start. I guess unless you are living, I don't know, in a cave, you've heard to talk about Star Wars before. But just in case, Star Wars, then it's a very popular science fiction movie franchise, it's created by George Lucas, and the first movie was released in 1977, and quite a long time ago. And what I'm talking about Star Wars here, I'm just considering the first six episodes. If you know a bit about Star Wars, then George Lucas started with episode number four, five, and six. Then probably 20 years later, he did episode number one, two, and three. Later on, George Lucas sold the franchise to Disney, and they started to create a lot of stuff. I do not like the last three Star Wars. That's why I'm focusing on the first six. But enough about movies. Let's also get something project management related here. And of course, starting with the classical phrase from Star Wars, may the force be with you. First thing that you need to learn. This is a very famous scene. It's a trap, it's a trap. I think this is from episode number four, where the rebel islands, they try to destroy the Death Star, and they think that everything is according with their plan, and when they get there they found out that was a trap from the Empire. Something that you can learn here, that some things they are not what they look like. And a lot of times in projects you see this kind of stuff, that things are not what they look like, and you can also look to this perspective every time you have a problem or you have an issue. One of the main things on a problem solving step, it's not assuming something or it's not taking something as granted. You need to look for the root cause, and that can be used that in a problem solving scenario, that you need to think about that not everything, not things they might not look, they might be different as they look like. So this is a very important information in your problem solving step, but in general for your different projects, meaning that you should not make assumptions or take things for granted, like assuming that someone understood something. You as a project manager, you are there, so you need to talk with people and confirm the information, because a lot of the times you can have miscommunication. This is very common, and it's one of the biggest issues that you have in a project, in any type of project, or in operations in general. That can be all kinds of things, because sometimes you say something and you intend something differently and people interpret in a different way, but can be because of different language, because different cultures background. So do not take things for granted. Do not make assumptions. You as a project manager, you should be there and your work should be clarifying that. So things might not be as they look like. So make sure that you always bring to the table, or you always work to clarify what those things are look like. And again, if you're thinking about a problem solving scenario, do not make assumptions. Also there, that's even more important. And if you're working with a problem solving, you need to look for to identify the root cause, not jumping on the solution, making assumptions, because in the end it might be a trap. Another very interesting thing here. This is, I think this is also a scene from the episode number four. Basically, in this scene, there the Han Solo, Leia, Chewbacca, and C-3PO, they are trying to run away from the Empire. And what Han Solo tried to do, he says, "I'm going to enter this asteroid." he tries to go to several asteroids when at the time C-3PO just says, "Sir, but there's a chance of 3,720 to 1 that you can succeed that." And just Han Solo, of course, if you have seen Star Wars, you know Han Solo. He just says, "Forget about that. Never tell me the odds," and he just goes straight for that because that's what he needs to do at the time. And what's the lesson here? First of all, you need to be confident because a lot of times people will tell you that something is not possible, but you as a project manager, you need to be confident in the solution that you have there, and you need to drive for that. And sometimes you need to take the risks. Of course, you need to manage your risks. So hopefully, you do not need to take a risk as Han Solo did it. But for example, a few years ago, when I was working with engineering, procurement, and construction project, I got a new project to build the electrical infrastructure for a wind farm, and it was a 12-month contract, meaning that I would have 1 year from the concept, design, and delivering, meaning construction, assembly, everything, testing, and commissioning. Here is something that is quite important because a lot of people they were telling me, "Oh, this project's not feasible, it's not important." And I was looking for the other way. Well, I'm confident I can deliver that because, of course, I did a risk assessment. I was not seeing something that was really absurd there. Of course, was not an easy job, or something did not went well. But so that's why it's important for you to be confident because yeah, sometimes they are not perfect. Sometimes you need to take the risks, as in this case, for Han Solo and the other guys. That was their only option. But in the end, they succeeded. Of course, it's a movie. But here it's something important for you that you should go for it. Then be confident there. And let's go for the next lesson I have here. Another lesson here is this is a scene from the episode 4 where they are trying to destroy the Death Star. And Luke Skywalker, that's the main character there. He's flying his ship, and he basically has to shoot to a very small hole. And that everyone is saying that's a very impossible shot and everything else. But how he make this happen is basically, of course, he used the force. Basically, you can put this as he trusts his gut. He keeps his mind quiet. Of course, he breathes, he concentrates, and he makes his shot, trusting his gut here that he could do that. So, in your project, a lot of times you see his stuff, and sometimes you do not have all the information to make a decision, or you do not have all the details that you would like to have to make a decision. But at some point, you need to make a decision because some decisions you need to take it. Otherwise, you have even more problems in your project if you do not take this decision. Sometimes you need to trust your gut. And meaning like trust your gut does not mean that you're going to take a decision by yourself. We talk with anyone. But if you are in a team, you discuss with your team. You take the specialist perspective. You take their advice. But if you need to take a decision, trust your gut. And your gut can say, yeah, trust the specialist in your team, or your gut can say something else. But then, of course, you can debate with the team and you can look for a better decision there. But always trust your gut. And this is really connected with what I mentioned on being confident, because you need this confidence. And please do not misunderstand confidence with arrogance. Those are completely different things. Confidence and trusting your gut means that you are going to listen carefully with your team and what you're saying. You are going to look for data. But at some point, you take the decision and you live with that. Meaning that if something goes wrong, it goes wrong. You take the responsibility. You are the leader of the team, so it's very important that you take the responsibility for what's going there, the good stuff, but also mainly the bad stuff. Do not blame your team members. But you need this confidence to make this possible. And also when you talk about confidence and trust in your gut in the decision-making process, And confidence, it also relates like when you are making a presentation to your stakeholders, for example. Very common companies, they have what's called can be a review board, a review meeting for the project with usually management from the meeting, and sometimes you have also those meetings with your customer to present the status of the project. It's important when you go for those meetings, you are confident there. Meaning that how can you be confident for a meeting that you might be even, sometimes you are even nervous? You need to be well prepared. Means that you prepared your presentations, you discuss with your team, you are aligned with your team, you make sure what the things are needs to be done are there, that you have a plan, you have actions in place, and everyone is aligned for a common direction. Of course, this is a lot of work that you put up front, but if you do that, you are going to be confident when you need it. And again, this is just a different perspective because when you talk about be confident, you basically you can have a lot of things, different things. But it's really important that you as a project manager, you learn how to build this confidence there. And of course, to build this confidence there, you might want to have a mentor that can advise you, that can be a mentor in the company or can be a mentor outside of the company. Like I have a mentoring program where I discuss with people and to advise them to help to build their confidence, but also to make sure that they have a bulletproof plan if they want to move forward with that. And of course, as I mentioned, the confidence and feeling and really trusting your gut, this gut feeling that you have here, that also will help you to be more confident in what you are doing. And of course, if you gain a bit more experience, that's naturally that you can build on more of this confidence. And the next point that I have here, that's a very classical scene. Probably this happens in episode number few episodes that you are going to see basically Darth Vader choking people there with the Force. One of the important things like you need to understand if you are a project manager or if you aspire to be a project manager, even though if you are a manager, if you are a leader, director, CEO, or whatever, then you need to be a leader for your team there. And basically what happens in this scene, they are trying to capture, I believe, Luke Skywalker or someone from the Rebel Alliance there. And these people just run off. I think, for example, in the case that I just mentioned, that Han Solo was driving to an asteroid belt there. And then this guy comes to deliver the bad news to Darth Vader. And when he says, oh, they just escaped it, Darth Vader, he choked the guy to death. That's basically it. But how? How does this is related with leadership and with project management? Of course, in your project, you are not going to choke anyone to death. But that means first you need to build a culture in your team that people are not afraid to deliver bad news. What happens is every time there's a problem, you enter a kind of blaming people and you start to create problems, escalated, blame people and pointing fingers. You are creating the wrong culture in your team. That means that you're not creating a team that's going to be a high performing team. And that means also that you're not aligned with the principles in the PMBOK 7 edition. You are not aligned with the Scrum values or any type of team development value to achieve a high performing team. First of all, if you're the leader, you need to take the responsibility. And instead of discussing what went wrong, just discuss, okay, what do we need to do next? Of course, depending what you are doing, you can investigate, okay, what happened? Because how can we avoid that? But depending on the time sensitivity of the problem, the first thing is not finding what happened, is finding how to put the problem under control. After you have this under control, and not under control does not mean that they solve it, just mean that, for example, if you have something that's like you're producing parts, you have a countermeasure to avoid that you are going to deliver bad parts for a customer, for example. Something like that can be 100% visual inspection or 100% inspection for a component, that you're going to do that with a higher cost, of course, for the project, but just to make sure that you can continue to deliver to the customer. That's putting something under control. And then, of course, you can work to find how to find what else that you need to solve this issue. You can create a plan and so on. But it's very important that your first reaction is not killing the messenger, as Darth Vader is doing here, because you really need to create a culture that you are building trust, right? That your team is committed, that your team will have transparency, and that your team they trusted each other. And trust it works, of course, when everything is going well, but when you have problems, when you have hard time, they are even more relevant there. This is even more important in difficult times because when people start to push each other, and that's natural that you have discussions, you might have hard discussions, but the trust and the culture that you are not there to blame people, to say why they did that, we should have done something differently. Because always keep in mind, I've been doing that for more than 13 years right now. It's very easy to say what should have been done in the future. It's like if you want to if you want to play in the lottery, it's always easy to say what the winning numbers after the winning numbers are there. The same way, if you have a problem, it's very easy to say, oh, what should have been done to avoid this problem after it's there. But you need also, of course, if you are working with under the right assumptions, people they do not do anything. You should not assume that people are doing are making mistakes because they want to do that. No one, I've never met someone that in the right state of mind would do something wrong just because they want to do something wrong. Sometimes things go wrong because they do not understand what needs to be done. So again, it's very important here, you as a project manager, that you do not make assumptions. Sometimes they do something wrong because they do not understand the process, because they do not have enough technical knowledge, or because they misunderstood something here, or because it was a lack of attention or any kind of thing. And that happens with everyone, including with yourself, including with me, including with your manager, including with your CEO, or whoever you can think about in the world. No one is perfect. No one is never going to be perfect. No company is perfect. No process is perfect. No product is perfect. No design is perfect. So, with that in mind, you need to understand that mistakes they are going to happen, and which is fine because, for example, if you are using, for example, Scrum, why using Scrum you want to build something incrementally? Because you understand that you do not have fully clarity in what you're doing there. Then that's why you want to build a piece. Then you inspect and you adapt. But to make sure that you can inspect and adapt, you need transparency. And for transparent works, you need to have trust. And you need to have this right culture there. Otherwise, people hide on the mistakes. And you see this kind of stuff happening a lot in big corporations. If they have like a director, a general manager, or I don't know, whoever name that you want to call there, that are always finding people to blame. So people will make weird calculation, key performance indicators, KPIs. People will try to blame other departments. And in the end, that does not help. So building a good culture there starts by making sure that you trust your people. You're not finding people to blame if something goes wrong. And I can guarantee to you that sooner or later something will go wrong. But you need to take this as a team. So in a team, you're not going to fight, oh, but someone should have done that. Say, okay, mistakes happen. That's okay. Understand how can we avoid, how can we learn the lesson, that if depending on the time sensitive of what your discussion, and I say, okay, how can we prevent something like that to happen in the future? But more important is, how do we solve the problem right now? What do we need to solve the problem right now? And with this type of mindset, instead of start blaming someone, you start to solve problems. Of course, if you're in a new team, this kind of trust and this kind of culture environment that I'm mentioning there, it will take time to build. That's natural. But that's why it's so important that you do not behave like Darth Vader and you come to the meetings, you just shout out orders, because that does not work. That does not work if you do that. I'm going to repeat that again. That's not the type of leadership that, in my perspective, first of all, that's not a leader. That's like you try to be a manager, or in this case, you try to be the emperor or whatever you want to call here. In this case, it was Lord Vader. But that does not work. So being a leader, it's also making sure that you make sure that you own your part there in what your team is doing. You have this ownership for you. You do not blame what goes wrong in your team. And every time that something come up, you try to learn your lesson, try to make sure that the team learns the lesson, how we can avoid this kind of stuff in the future, but always look forward. Here, not blaming people, it's crucial if you want to have a high performing team. Let's go to the next one. That's, I think, for sure, one of my favorite ones. This is in the episode number 5, when Luke Skywalker, he goes to train with Yoda, to learn how to be a Jedi there. And there's a scene, basically, I think his ship is kind of mostly underwater, and Yoda tells him, use the Force and lift the ship and take it out from the water. And Luke starts to try and see, no, I cannot. And then Yoda just tells him, do it or do not. There's no trial. And he starts to argue with Yoda, that's impossible, no one can do that. And then Yoda just go use the Force and does that. So do it or do not. There's no trial. And I bring a quote here from Henry Ford to put this in a different perspective. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Meaning that your mindset is the most important thing here. Because depending on your type of mindset, you can succeed, and depending on your type of mindset, you are going to fail. But it's because if you do not believe that you can succeed, you are not going to do that. If you do not believe that you can deliver a project on time, you are not going to do that. If you do not believe that your team can perform well, your team will not perform well. If you do not think that you are going to be a good leader, you are not going to be a good leader. And this is a very important difference here that I need to make. This is not being arrogant. This is having the confidence. Again, let's go back to the lessons here. Having the confidence that you can do something, trusting your gut, that once you have options in which directions you go. But very important that you just do not blind yourself, say I can do that, and you keep doing the same thing. That's not about that. Is you approach things in a way that you are going to try to learn. So if you try to do something that does not work, try again. What did you learn in the previous with the previous trial? I've seen that a lot. In one example here, if you are trying to find a position, for example, with project manager, find a position as a project manager. I've seen people telling me that I applied for, I applied for 1 or 2 positions and I've never heard back from anyone. Then I don't think I can do that. Come on. 1 or 2 positions and you're already giving up? That's not possible. You need to believe. Do it. Sometimes it can be hard. If you're looking for a job, I've seen, and I've done that myself when I try to start to pursue my international career. And I believe that I applied for more than 200 or 300 positions. Why? Because I mentioned this already there. Is that I was working in the same company for almost 7 years. That means I did not have even a CV. And that means that my CV was a crappy CV in the beginning. And of course, when I start to apply with this crap CV, I do not get any answers. Then I need to improve. I need to learn how to improve to a CV. Then I go to an interview. I was completely unprepared for an interview. Then I had to learn how to perform properly in interviews. And if you're in this situation, you need, or do it or do not. You need to believe, you need to think that you can do it. But that does not mean that you're going to be stubborn and not doing anything else. Just keep going blindly there. That means that you're going to learn. Try. Okay, you failed. What you can learn with that, and you do best next time. By the way, this is exactly how an agile approach works. Like if you're using Scrum, you are building something incrementally. You build a piece, then you have the transparency. Remember that to make sure to put this in more a contest project. If you are working with a team, you need to build the right environment to something like that work. But then you have the transparency. You are going to inspect and you are going to adapt. So if the first thing that you did not work, the outcome that you do not have, you get feedback from the customer that needs to change this, and that, or they did not want that, okay, you just adapt and you move forward. That works. That's how the idea of Scrum. But when I'm talking about Scrum, because you're building something incrementally, you can use this same mindset if you're working with waterfall. For example, in one of the projects I worked, it was a construction project, in this case EPC, engineering, procurement and construction. The critical part of the critical path for the project was to build was to have the building ready, because this was kind of a control building where all the electrical infrastructure, the automation system, the protection system should be inside of that. And of course, this was connected with all the equipment and all with the electrical infrastructure. But you need to have this building ready to make sure that you can follow the next steps in the assembly and the commissioning. And of course, this was the critical path for my project. And then I start with the design in a construction environment. So before I really jump in the infrastructure design for the building, we just work on a kind of layout, and we approve with the customer. Say, look how this mock-up looks. Please make sure you approve that before I move for the next steps, because after you have the layout, I define the rooms and where I'm going to have columns and this kind of stuff. If you need to change the design there, all my infrastructure, the physical infrastructure needs to be redone there. So this was quite important. So instead of doing this in parallel, I just did this first layout, talk with the customer, say this is the critical path, I need feedback from you very fast, and I need to move forward with that. So this was also kind of building something incrementally, and that's why this is so relevant that you have this mindset in anything that you are going to do. And again, if you are working with a design, sometimes you are going to test, sometimes it's going to fail. You need to learn with that. So when I'm talking about think that you can do it instead of trying it also is connected with that you need to continue to learn with what is happening, but you need to continue to believe that you can. Because if you stop, if you keep thinking that you cannot do it, then you're not going to do it, because you're going to be demotivated, you're not going to have good ideas, you're not going to have good discussions with the team, then you might enter, then you also affect your team, you enter a kind of culture that you start to blame each other because you cannot do it, and that goes the complete direction that you want. So very important here, do it or do not. Whether you think you can or you think you can, you are right. So this is a very important thing about your mindset as a project manager. And the last lesson I think I have here is, this is already, I believe, in the episode number 2 and number 3 that you see a lot Yoda saying about this, that basically in this situation it's still Anakin. Anakin was Luke Skywalker's father, if you do not know that, and Anakin basically he ended up going to the dark side and he became the Darth Vader. And but before that, he of course he was a Jedi, but he was afraid of losing his wife, his loved one, and because she was pregnant, and also his child. And Yoda tells him, "Fear leads to the dark side because fear will lead you to anger, anger will lead you to hate, and hate leads to suffering." And so, what happens? That he ended up starting with fear, that he starts with anger, and that leads him to the dark side, and that's how he turns out to be the dark. He becomes a Darth Vader there. But what's the lesson for that to you? Your project in the real world. Control your mind. Don't give in to negative emotions. This is a lesson that I also talk about in one of my trainings about mindset. I also bring some stuff about the Stoics there, some Stoicism lessons. Not that I'm a Stoicism philosopher. I'm just an apprentice there that I'm trying to improve myself. But controlling your mind is very important here because uh, this is completely connected with other lessons. Like if you're facing challenges in getting a job and you start to believe, oh, I'm not capable, I cannot do that, then you're not going to work. Then you start to put a lot of those negative emotions in your mind, and that's might get you angry or you hate something or that might lead you to start suffering. But you need to understand that you have power over your mind, not the other way around. That's also one of the quotes from Marcus Aurelius, a very famous Stoic there. And this is the first step for everything that you need to do. Because if you cannot control your mind properly there and your emotions, and what I mean controlling does not mean that you're not going to be that sometimes you do not feel down, that you do not feel blue, that you don't have bad emotions, that you do not suffer. It's not about that. You cannot avoid all your emotions, but you need to understand sometimes instead of giving up, say, okay, this is just a bad day. And sometimes what you need, depending of course where you are, depending on the time, just go forward in the day the best way you can. Do not take like decisions based on anger and sleep on that. Sometimes even you do what you need to do. Like working as a project manager, sometimes you're saying, I'm in a bad day, I do not want to do this report. Well, sometimes you can do that another time, but some days you need to do it anyway. And after you do those stuff, you feel a bit better. And even though if in the end of the day you're frustrated, just try to relax, sleep, and start again the next day. But it's very important because at the moment that you understand that you can control your mind, that you don't need to give in on your emotions, then you take the control back for you. Because even in a bad day, you know that that will pass and everything will pass. The good days will pass and the bad days, they are also going to pass. So controlling your mind, it's a very important lesson here. Because if you as a project manager, you cannot control yourself. You don't have the what's also if I'm putting here in a more project management terms, when you talk about leadership, it's emotional intelligence. If you do not work to develop your emotional intelligence, the chances are that you are going to end up as Darth Vader here. And you're going to meetings to chuck people, and you're going to go to call orders, or you want to execute stuff. Like, be aware of that. This is something very important for you. And controlling your mind, this lesson here, don't give up to these negative emotions, that understanding that fear, anger, hate will only lead to suffer to you, to your team, to your loved ones. So all those things here do not help. So learning, creating the emotional intelligence to handle this stuff, this is quite important for you to succeed as a project manager, but also to succeed as a manager, as a person, as a friend, as a husband, or whatever your is the position that you have in your life, that as a son, as a father, and so on. So very important lesson here that from Yoda. Of course, Yoda is the Jedi Master of the Jedi Masters. So don't give up to your negative emotions. Don't give up to the dark side. So this was the last lesson I had to share it with you today. I hope you like it. Make sure you like this video and share this video with people that you think the content can help them also in project management, or they're just a Star Wars fan and that can be a very nice lesson for them. Make sure that also if you have questions, you reach out. You feel free to make your comments here. I'm going to try to answer all of your comments the best as I can. If you want, make sure you follow me for more content. I'm always sharing more content, almost weekly there. But also make sure you follow me on YouTube, or also on Instagram. On Instagram, I have shorter posts, daily posts where you can learn a bit more. I have a Q&A box open every day, or you can ask questions about leadership, project management, about career, CV, and so on. And I hope you like the content. Let me know what you think about that. That also helps me to keep going. And of course, as it could not be different if we are talking about Star Wars, may the Force